Nothing survives here. And yet, 300,000 people call this home. Yakutsk, the coldest major city on Earth. Temperatures plunge to minus 60 degrees Celsius in winter. At that point, metal shatters. Exposed skin freezes in minutes. Your breath crystallizes mid-air. But Yakutsk isn't alone. Across Siberia, from frozen cities to isolated villages perched at the edge of survival, the impossible is ordinary. Places where life shouldn't exist, but where families thrive. Where children grow up, where grandmothers pass down knowledge the modern world has forgotten. The cold doesn't kill us, it teaches us. This is how Siberia covers 13 million square kilometers. Larger than the United States and Europe combined. A landmass so vast it contains multiple climate zones, from Arctic tundra to temperate forests. But what defines Siberia isn't its size. It's its cold. In winter, temperatures plunge to minus 60 inches cities, minus 71 inches villages. The coldest inhabited places on Earth. At these temperatures, exposed metal becomes brittle enough to snap. Car tires freeze solid. Without proper shelter, hypothermia sets in within minutes. And yet, millions live here, work here, raise families here. Not in spite of the cold, but because of what the cold demands. 3 places, 3 impossible challenges, 3 very different answers. Yakutsk, where building a city on permanently frozen ground should be impossible. 300,000 people live on permafrost that's been solid for 500,000 years. One wrong move, and the entire foundation collapses. Yet they've engineered a solution that turns frozen earth from enemy to foundation. Oymyakon, where surviving minus 71 winters with almost no outside contact should be impossible. A village of 900, cut off from the world 6 months a year. No cell service. Supplies flown in or driven across ice roads that exist only in deep winter. Families that have endured here for generations, preserving knowledge most of us have never needed. Lake Baikal, where frozen water creating transcendent beauty should be impossible. The world's deepest lake, holding 1/5 of Earth's fresh water. Every winter, it freezes into something that looks less like ice and more like stained glass. Fishermen spend months on its surface, finding not just survival, but meaning. But here's the secret. Siberia didn't break these people. It forged them. To understand what cold creates, we start where 300,000 people wake up every morning in a place that shouldn't exist. Yakutsk sits on permafrost, ground that's been frozen for 500,000 years. Solid ice extends hundreds of meters down. In most places, you dig a foundation, pour concrete, and build. Here, that's a death sentence. Heat from the building melts the permafrost beneath it. The foundation sinks, slowly at first, then catastrophically. Entire structures tilt, crack, collapse into the softening ground. It happened in the Soviet era. Apartment blocks built directly on the earth. Within years, they were leaning at impossible angles. walls cracked open, doors wouldn't close. Some buildings had to be abandoned entirely, swallowed by the very ground they tried to conquer. So, Yakutsk learned. You don't fight the permafrost, you build above it. Every building in this city stands on stilts. Concrete pillars driven deep into the frozen earth, creating a gap between structure and ground. 2-3 meters of open space beneath every home, every office, every school. Cold air flows freely underneath. The permafrost stays frozen. The city stays standing. It's not elegant, but it works. 300,000 people live here because someone figured out how to engineer a city on ice. Sasha is one of those engineers. He's 30. Born here, studied civil engineering in Yakutsk, never left. For the past 8 years, he's designed buildings that have to withstand conditions that would destroy structures anywhere else. When you meet him, the first thing you notice is how ordinary he seems. Not bundled against the cold, just wearing what looks like a normal winter jacket. Walking through -52 like someone else might walk through autumn rain. First thing every morning, check the thermometer. Anything below -50, you change your plans. Today, it's -52. Sasha's heading to work anyway. Inside his apartment, it's 25 degrees. Warm enough to be comfortable in a t-shirt. Step outside and you cross into another world. The temperature drops 77 degrees in the space of a doorway. The fog hits first. Not weather fog. This is moisture squeezed out of the air by the cold, hanging in thick clouds at street level. You can barely see 20 meters ahead. The city disappears into white. Then the sound, or rather, the absence of it. Cold this extreme dampens everything. Voices don't carry. Footsteps are muffled. Even the traffic sounds distant, muted, as if the entire city is wrapped in cotton. Sasha walks 6 blocks to his office. 6 blocks that would take maybe 10 minutes anywhere else. Here, it takes 20. Not because you're moving slowly. Because you have to move carefully. Every breath is planned. Breathe too fast through your nose, and the moisture freezes inside your nostrils. Breathe through your mouth, and the cold hits your lungs like a punch. You learn to breathe through a scarf. Shallow breaths. Steady pace. Never rush. His office looks like any modern workspace. Computers, drafting tables, windows overlooking the city. Everything important stays visible here. Heating pipes run above ground. Underground is permanent. Underground is inaccessible. Bury a pipe, and when it breaks, you won't find it until spring. So they run exposed. If something fails, you see it immediately. You fix it immediately. Because at -50, immediately is all you have. It's his daughter's face on his desk that reveals the other reality of living here. She was born 4 years ago. January 17th, -48 degrees that morning. The ambulance couldn't turn off its engine. Not for a second. Engine off at that temperature means engine dead. So it idled in the hospital parking lot for 7 hours while his wife was in labor. burning fuel just to stay functional. That's Yakutsk. You don't turn off cars from November through March. They run continuously, or they don't run at all. Batteries die, oil turns to sludge, diesel gels into solid wax. Park your car, and you've made a decision. Leave the engine running, or leave the car until spring. His daughter is helping, growing up like kids anywhere. Except she's learning things other children never need to know. How to recognize the warning signs of frostbite. How long she can play outside before coming in to warm up. Which days are too cold even for school. There's a protocol. Below -50, elementary schools close. Below -52, secondary schools close. Below -55, everything closes except essential services. The city doesn't stop. It adjusts. When I ask Sasha if he's ever considered leaving, he looks at me like the question doesn't make sense. Leave for where? For what? This isn't a place you endure. This is home. The cold didn't make us desperate. It made us careful. Made us innovative. Made us closer. You can't be distant with your neighbors here. You can't. In Yakutsk, you need people. When your car won't start, you need someone to help. When the heating fails, you need somewhere to go. That's not weakness. That's survival. And survival built community in a way comfort never could. His friends are the same people he went to school with. The same people he works with. The same people his daughter will go to school with. In the city, people talk about networking, about building relationships. Here, relationships aren't built. They're essential. They're the foundation, just like the pillars beneath every building. The cold removed the option of being isolated. And in removing that option, it gave them something most cities have lost. Sasha heads home the same 6 blocks. The temperature has dropped another 2 degrees. -54 now. The fog is thicker, but his apartment is still 25 degrees. His daughter is drawing at the kitchen table. His wife is making dinner. And tomorrow, he'll check the thermometer again and make the same walk to the same office, designing buildings for a city that exists because someone refused to accept impossible. But Yakutsk isn't the coldest place in Siberia. Not even close. 550 kilometers northeast, at the end of a road that closes half the year, lies the coldest inhabited place on Earth. Oymyakon. Population 500. Record temperature -71.2 degrees Celsius. If Yakutsk shows us innovation, Oymyakon shows us what happens when you strip everything away except what matters. The road to Oymyakon doesn't exist for 6 months of the year. From November through April, it's buried under snow too deep for regular vehicles. The only way in is by specialized truck or by air. This is intentional isolation, not geographic accident. People live here by choice, in a valley where cold air settles and stays, trapped by mountains that block any warming wind. It's not just the coldest inhabited place on Earth. It's coldest because of its shape, its position, its fundamental geography. This is a place designed by nature to be inhospitable. And yet, 500 people call it home. Most have never lived anywhere else. Most never will. The village itself looks like it was sketched in monochrome. Wooden houses painted in faded blues and greens. Smoke rising from chimneys in the still air. No traffic lights. No restaurant chains. One school. One shop. One medical clinic. Everything you need, nothing you don't. Olga is 70. She's lived in this house for 52 years. Raised 3 children here. Buried her husband here. Now she lives with her grandson, Dmitri. He's 12. Her home is small. 2 rooms plus a kitchen. Wood stove in the center, radiating heat. The walls are thick. Triple layers of wood with insulation between. Even so, you can feel the cold pressing against the windows. Not wind. Just cold, heavy, and patient, waiting. She's teaching Dmitri how to prepare fish. Not for tonight's dinner. For storage? This one fish, properly preserved, will last them 6 months. First, she makes precise cuts, removing the organs without puncturing anything that would spoil the meat. Then she hangs it outside. At -65, it freezes in minutes. Flash frozen better than any industrial freezer could manage. The ice crystals are smaller. The texture stays better. When they thaw a piece to cook, it tastes like it was caught that morning. This is knowledge that can't be Googled, can't be learned from a book. It requires hands that have done this 1,000 times, teaching hands that are watching carefully. Olga speaks quietly. Short sentences. No wasted words. When you live somewhere this cold, you learn economy in everything. Movement, heat, words, everything has a cost. She tells me about recognizing frostbite early. When your fingers start tingling, you have 5 minutes. Not 10, 5. That's how long before tissue damage begins. Most people don't know that. Most people wait too long, thinking it's just cold, thinking they can handle it. Then they lose fingers. Her grandmother taught her. Her grandmother's grandmother taught her grandmother. Knowledge passed down because losing it means death. But Dmitri lives between 2 worlds. On the table is a tablet, old model, cracked screen, but it works. Barely. The internet comes and goes in Oymyakon. Satellite connection when weather allows. Which means Dmitri can see what exists beyond this valley. Can watch videos of kids his age in cities, playing in parks, going to cafes, living lives that look nothing like his. His friend in Yakutsk sends him clips, gaming videos, music, glimpses of a world that has everything Oymyakon lacks. Electricity that never cuts out, running water, heated buildings, choices. When I ask if he wants to leave someday, he doesn't answer immediately. just looks at his grandmother. Then out the window at the village. Then back at the tablet. I don't want to forget. That's all he says. But it contains everything. The pull of the modern world. The weight of tradition. The knowledge that leaving means losing something that can't be recovered. Olga knows this tension. Her 3 children all left. One lives in Yakutsk. 2 in Russia proper. They visit rarely. The cold keeps them away. Or maybe the cold is just a convenient explanation for distance that was always coming. She doesn't blame them, but she worries about what gets lost when people leave. Not just the knowledge, the reasons behind the knowledge, the understanding of why you do things a certain way. Young people go to the city for university. They learn chemistry, biology, medicine, all important, but they forget how to read the cold. How to know, just by the air, whether it's safe to travel, whether the ice on the lake will hold, which direction the weather is coming from. That knowledge took generations to accumulate, and it disappears in one generation's absence. She's teaching Dmitri everything she can. How to split wood efficiently. How to preserve meat. How to recognize the signs of hypothermia in livestock before it's too late. Practical knowledge that kept her family alive through winters that would have killed anyone unprepared. But she's also teaching him something harder to define. How to find contentment in simplicity. How to measure wealth by what matters rather than what you own. How to be present in a world that increasingly values distraction. In the city, she says, people eat alone. Even when they're together, they're alone. Looking at screens. Thinking about something else. Here, when you eat. When you're with someone, you're with them. The cold doesn't allow for distraction. It demands presence. Dinner is simple. Fish, potatoes, bread, tea. But they eat together. No television. No phones. Just conversation. Dmitri tells a story from school. Olga listens. Actually listens. And in that moment, I understand what she's trying to preserve. Not just survival skills. Connection. Attention. The things that make isolation bearable and sometimes even preferable. After dinner, Olga demonstrates something. She takes a cup of hot water and throws it into the air outside. At -65, it doesn't fall as water. It vaporizes instantly. Turns to ice crystals mid-air, catching the light like diamonds before settling as frost. Dmitri has seen this 100 times, but he still watches, still smiles. Because it's not about the trick. It's about the moment. About being present for something small and beautiful that exists only here, only now, only because the cold makes it possible. This is what Oymyakon offers. Not comfort, not convenience, but clarity. When everything unnecessary is stripped away by necessity, what remains is what matters. Family, knowledge, presence, connection. The young people leave because they want more. But some, like Dmitri, understand they'd be leaving behind something that isn't easily measured or easily replaced. As I prepare to leave Oymyakon, driving back down the road that will close in weeks, Olga gives me one more piece of wisdom. The cold teaches patience. Everything takes longer here. Travel, work, even conversation. You can't rush. Rushing means mistakes. Mistakes mean danger. So you slow down, and in slowing down, you see more, feel more, understand more. Maybe that's why the village remains. Not because people are trapped, but because they've learned something the rushing world has forgotten. From the coldest village, we travel to the coldest miracle, where Siberia's harshness creates something so beautiful it seems impossible. Lake Baikal, 25 million years old, 1,700 meters deep, holding 1/5 of Earth's fresh water. Every winter, it transforms into something that looks more like art than nature. When Lake Baikal freezes, it doesn't simply turn to ice. It becomes a window, the clearest natural ice on Earth. So transparent you can see 40 meters down to the lake floor. Standing on the surface feels like floating above an abyss. The ice doesn't freeze smooth, it cracks constantly. As the temperature drops, the surface contracts. Stress builds. Then release. A sound like thunder rolling across the horizon. Deep groans that you feel in your chest before you hear them. The lake singing. Methane bubbles trapped mid-rise. Perfect spheres of gas frozen in columns, stacked like coins in the crystal. Each bubble captured at the exact moment the ice locked it in place. Some are tiny. Some are the size of dinner plates. All suspended in absolute clarity. And then there are the cathedrals. Pressure from beneath pushes ice upward in jagged spires. Shards 3-4 meters tall. Translucent blue. Edges sharp enough to cut. They form overnight. No warning. Just pressure, physics creating structures that look designed rather than made. This isn't beauty despite the cold. This is beauty because of it. The harshness creates conditions impossible to replicate. The cold makes the water pure. The freezing makes it clear. The pressure makes it art. Sergei has been coming to this lake for 20 years. Every winter, same spot, same routine. He's 45 now. Originally from Yakutsk, the city an hour west. Had a normal life there. Office job. Apartment. The things people are supposed to want. Then one winter, someone convinced him to try ice fishing. That first trip changed everything. People think I fish because I need the food. That's half true. He's setting up his shelter now. A small insulated tent. Portable heater. Drill for cutting through ice. The basics. But his movements are practiced. Efficient. This is muscle memory. The ice here is 60 centimeters thick. Thick enough to drive a truck across. He drills straight down. The auger bites through with steady pressure. Ice chips spray up, catching light. Then break through. dark water below. He lowers his line. No rod, just line wrapped around a wooden spool. Hook, weight, bait. Simple. Everything out here is simple. I ask him why he keeps coming back. He doesn't answer immediately. Just watches the line, waiting. I had a good job. Made decent money. But something was missing. I couldn't name it. Just this feeling of waiting for something I couldn't identify. Out here, you don't wait. You're present. The cold forces it. His hands are scarred. Years of handling line in sub-zero temperatures. Frostbite marks on his fingers. But they're steady. Confident. These are hands that have found their purpose. When it's minus 30 and the wind cuts through everything, you can't think about yesterday. Can't think about tomorrow. You're just here, just now. And in that presence, something settles. A tug on the line. Quick. Decisive. He pulls up Oymyakon, a fish endemic to Baikal, found nowhere else on Earth. Silver scales catch the light as it surfaces. He measures it, keeps it one fish closer to what he came for. But I realize he didn't come for fish. He tells me about his first winter on the ice, how the silence overwhelmed him. In the city, there's always sound, traffic, voices, music, constant input. Out here, the silence is so complete you can hear your own heartbeat. At first, it was uncomfortable. Then it became necessary. The cold doesn't kill us. It wakes us up. He's looking at the ice cathedral nearby. Massive shards catching afternoon light, blue and white and crystal clear. In a few months, it will melt. These structures will collapse back into water. They exist only now. Only in this specific winter. Only because the conditions align perfectly. That's the thing about Baikal. Nothing here is permanent except the lake itself. The ice forms and melts. The cathedrals rise and fall. Even the fish I catch, they're part of a cycle that's been running for 25 million years. I'm just passing through. We all are. But the cold made me stop passing through my own life. He packs his gear as the sun drops toward the horizon. One fish. Enough. Tomorrow he'll come back. Same spot. Same routine. Not because he has to. Because out here, he found something the city couldn't give him. Clarity. Purpose. A sense of being exactly where he's supposed to be. What Sergei found, and what Baikal shows, is that the impossible isn't a barrier. It's a teacher. In Yakutsk, the cold taught innovation. Engineers who build cities above frozen ground. Systems that keep 300,000 people warm when the air itself wants to kill them. Sasha didn't survive the cold. He mastered it. Turned a hostile environment into home for ingenuity and community. In Oymyakon, the cold taught wisdom. grandmothers who preserve knowledge, the modern world rushes past. Dmitri learning that some things can't be Googled. That presence matters more than convenience. That connection requires attention. Olga didn't endure the cold. She let it strip away everything unnecessary until only what mattered remained. At Baikal, the cold taught presence. Fishermen who found meaning in what others call harsh. Sergei didn't escape to the ice. He woke up there, discovered that discomfort can be a path to clarity. That sometimes you need the world to slow down before you can see it clearly. Siberia's secret isn't survival. It's creation. The cold didn't kill them. It forged them into something stronger. Something clearer. Something more present than most of us manage in our comfortable lives. What impossible conditions are forging you right now? What impossible conditions are forging you right now? What are you building on your permafrost? What knowledge are you preserving in your isolation? Where are you finding your clarity? The answers might not be comfortable, but they're there, waiting in whatever cold you're facing. And if you're ready to face Siberia's cold yourself, here's what you need to know. When to visit. January through March is coldest but clearest. Minus 50 is manageable with proper gear, and the sky is sharp enough to cut. Summer runs June through August. Warmer, 20 to 25 degrees, but the extreme cold is what makes Siberia Siberia. Getting there, flying to Moscow. From there, Yakutsk is 6 hours east. Oymyakon requires a local guide and winter-capable vehicle. Lake Baikal is accessed through Yakutsk, 2-hour drive to the lake. The route, 10 days gives you all 3 locations. 3 days in Yakutsk. See the city, meet locals, understand how modern life functions at minus 60. 2-day guided trip to Oymyakon. This isn't optional tourism. You need someone who knows the road, knows the weather, knows what to do if something goes wrong. 4 days at Baikal. Ice fishing, hiking the frozen surface, seeing the cathedrals. Final day back through Yakutsk before flying out. Essential gear. Layer system rated to minus 60 minimum. Base layer that wicks moisture. Insulation layer for warmth. Shell layer to block wind. Face mask. Not optional. At minus 50, exposed skin freezes in under 5 minutes. Goggles protect your eyes from ice crystals in the air. Boots rated to minus 70. Battery management. Keep phone and camera batteries against your body. In a pocket close to skin. They die in minutes at extreme cold. Bring backup batteries. Keep them warm. Safety rules. Never travel to Oymyakon alone. The guide isn't a luxury. It's survival insurance. Keep your vehicle engine running in extreme cold. Once you turn it off, it won't restart until spring. Carry emergency supplies in any vehicle. Food, water, blankets, backup heat source. Permits. Russia offers e-visa for most countries. 16 days maximum. Oymyakon requires a local permit handled by your guide. Resources. full guide with specific contacts, accommodation recommendations, and gear lists is in the description below. One more thing. Siberia isn't easy. The cold is real. The isolation is real. The risks are real. But nothing that transforms you ever is. If you're ready, the impossible is waiting. Remember the question? What do humans become when Siberia forces them to evolve? Engineers, elders, seekers, people who learned that impossible is just another word for not yet. Sasha builds cities on ice. Olga preserves wisdom in isolation. Sergei finds meaning in harshness. 3 people, 3 impossibilities, 1 truth. Siberia's secret isn't written in ice. It's written in the people who refused to leave, who looked at conditions that should have killed them and instead asked, "What can this teach me?" The cold didn't kill them. It taught them, forced innovation, preserved wisdom, demanded presence, created beauty from harshness. Next time, we go to the opposite extreme, where fire, not cold, forged the impossible, where volcanoes don't destroy communities, they create them. Kamchatka, where the earth is still deciding what it wants to be. If this changed how you see challenges, I'd love to have you along for the journey. New impossible destinations every month. Thanks for watching.